So in this video, I'm going to give you a little bit more information about our grading system in terms of the exams, which we saw actually represent about 90% of all of the students' grades. So exams happen about every 2 weeks if you're working from Monday through Friday, which will mean every 2 units if you are in the interchange books. And that would mean that even for Saturday classes, Monday through Friday and Saturday, there are 4 exams every cycle. So for Saturday classes, that means about 1 exam every month. And for Monday through Friday classes, it means 1 exam about every 2 weeks. And exam schedules go out at the beginning of each cycle, so you will know ahead of time when the exact dates are for the exams. Exam 1 is worth 10% of the student's grades, as you can see up on the screen here. Exam 2 is worth 15%, Exam 3 25%, and Exam 4 30%. As you can also see, Exams 1 and 3 include an oral exam as part of their final grade. Exams 2 and 4 do not have an oral component in the exam themselves. In the case of Exam 2, there will be no oral component at all. In the case of Exam 4, in reality, Exam 4 is usually the second to the last day of classes, and then the last day of classes is the final oral exam, so they get an oral exam that's worth 10% of their final grade right after Exam 4. So technically speaking, Exam 2 is the only one that doesn't actually have any sort of oral that goes along with it. But Exam 4, the final oral exam, is a separate grade. It does not go as part of the grade in Exam 4. So if you can see up on the screen here, the exams in the interchange levels go every 2 units. So that would mean that Exam 1 would be the first 2 units of your level. If you are in one of the A levels, meaning Basic 1, Intermediate 1, or Advanced 1, then that would mean units 1 and 2. If you are in one of the B levels, in other words, Basic 2, Intermediate 2, or Advanced 2, that would mean units 9 through 10. And so on and so forth. So in interchange, it goes the first 2 units, then the next 2 units, the next 2 units, and then the final 2 units of that level. For passages, it's a little different. This is for the academic levels, principally because the book of passages only has 6 units. So what we have done is for Exams 1 and 3 that also have an oral component, you will only be testing the students on 1 unit. As you can see on the screen here, Academic 1 and Academic 3, passages 1A and 2A, would be Unit 1, and passages 1B and 2B, which is Academic 2 and Academic 4, would be Unit 7. And then for the second exam, they will be graded over the 2 units. Now, if you're teaching one of the academic levels and you're teaching from passages, this will be up to the teacher how you want to divide your teaching time. If you want to take the full 2 weeks to work on Unit 1, for example, that would be fine. I know some teachers finish Unit 1 a little bit early and start in on Unit 2 before the first exam actually happens. But it's important for you to know that if you do start a unit early, the exam itself will not include any of that information. So the first 2 weeks of class would be Exam 1, Unit 1, for example. When you do the oral exam, something to consider is that the teacher needs to decide on the topic for the oral exam. And this could be a conversation, they could be conversation questions from the different topics in the unit. You can find these in the assessment program in Presentation Plus, or if you have a physical book, it's in a CD at the back of the book. You can make up your own conversation questions if you'd like. Students could work in pairs and do a conversation or a mini role play. You could have students, depending on the level, maybe describe a picture or give a scenario, talk about what they would do in a certain situation, using a picture as a prompt. They could tell a story or talk about something that happened to them in their own lives. You could do a one-on-one interview with the teacher where students are interviewed individually by the teacher, or they could do a short presentation. This could be individually done or in groups. So it's really up to the teacher how you want to handle any of the oral exams. That includes the oral components from Exams 1 and 3 and the final oral exam. So you can decide how you would like to do that. As you can see here, the exams are broken down into certain sections. So because of remote teaching and the fact that we are doing our exams on Moodle, they have changed a little bit from what we used to do. As you can see, there is no listening as part of the exam at the moment, but students will get an opportunity to do some writing. That will be worth 15% of their exam grade. They need to know the vocabulary from the units. So you'll remember in interchange, that would mean the word power sections of each unit, and that is worth 10% of their grade. Of course, exams 1 and 3 have the oral component. That's actually worth 20% of their grade. And there's a reading component, which is worth 10% of their grade. All of the rest of those percentages, depending on which exam you're in, would be grammar and language usage. So once again, here is how the exams are divided by units according to the level. I just realized that beginner is not on here, but it is beginner intro A. It's the same thing as levels 1A, 2A, and 3A, meaning the first 2 units is exam 1, units 3 and 4 is exam 2, units 5 and 6 exam 3, and units 7 and 8 exam 4. Exams are going to be through Moodle, even if students are in face-to-face classrooms, at least for the moment. That will mean that students have to enter the Moodle classroom and go to the tab or the pestaña that's called exams. In this tab is where they will find the exams, and exams will not be available until the day of the exam and the schedule in which the student is taking the exam. One suggestion is to make sure that all of your students have access to the Moodle classroom before exam day. If you wait until the exam is starting, sometimes you find that a student is having trouble entering or forgot their password or never went into the Moodle classroom, and it becomes a real problem on the day of the exam to try to solve that issue. So a good suggestion is to try to get students in there a couple days before the exam, make sure there are no problems, and if there are, they can talk to the tech department to figure out what their problems might be. So on exam day, if students are taking face-to-face classes, they will go to a computer lab and they will take the exam with the teacher in the room with them. If the students are studying remotely, then they need to connect to the WebEx video conference, the class, and they have to have their camera turned on. Their face needs to be in the picture. You should be able to see that they are taking the exam and that they are not reading from something or checking something during the exam period. Another suggestion would be have students check that their cameras are working the day before the exam, just to try to solve any of those issues that might come up at the moment of the exam. If a student completes the exam early, he or she can turn off their camera and leave the WebEx class, and you will be able to find their finalized exam in the Moodle classroom. We do have some tutorials that have been recorded and some different PDFs that are like slides that we have that can help you explain how to administer and grade the exam on Moodle. You can ask your sub-coordinator for these, and they can be sent to you individually if you don't know how to grade a quiz on Moodle. But you do need to make sure that once you have the final grade of each of the students' exams, you do have to transfer these grades manually from Moodle to Siznote. They will not get uploaded to Siznote automatically. So you'll need to make a note of what the grade is that each student has and put that into the grading system for SEC so that the students will be able to see their grades.